Consent is a very commonly used law basis of processing, but it should not be blindly like everywhere. Let's use consent. So there are certain specifications when you feel that consent would be good, and it would depend on your individual circumstances. That when is consent as a legal basis for processing good? But when you use consent, you should ensure that it is a positive opt-in. A couple of minutes before I said that somebody is accessing your website, for example, and you've already selected consent. As a customer or as an individual, it falls upon me to go and select it, right? I have to click and not select it. So to remove the tick from there, that should not be the case. It requires a positive opt-in. I should go and say yes to it. It is not like you've already, as a controller, said yes and I have to remove or say to no it. And the second thing is it has to be affirmative. Affirmative means yes. It should not be like ambiguous. It should be unambiguous. It should be very clear in terms. We are going to process your personal data for these purposes. Please provide your consent for it. Something like that. Then explicit consent is required, very specific manner. It not be implied, like you have written on your website that people who use this website, their data might be processed for these purposes. No, you have to have your privacy notice, and there you have to say that before processing this website, please look at our privacy policy, or this is our cookie policy. Say yes to necessary cookies. So there are necessary cookies, then there are functional cookies, and then there are marketing cookies and analytical cookie. You can say no to analytical cookie and marketing cookie, but essential cookies are important because that's what facilitates that you can access that website. So it has to be very clear and specific statement. Then consent requires separate form. Keep your consent request separate from other terms and conditions. You don't have to mix it. Your privacy notice, you have to very clearly specify that I am giving my consent for these kinds of processing, and consent is being used as a lawful basis of processing. Be very clear. It should not be vague or blank or blanket consent that I will use your data for giving you information about anything that's related to customized. So let me frame it properly. If the company takes your data and will say that I'll send you marketing information or about food related things. So that is very ambiguous. It's very blanket and covers everything. What food information? Tomorrow if a restaurant starts calling me that sees that you like to try new food every Tuesday, for example, we have a new dish, would you like to? I did not give my consent for that. You can have my consent for necessary purpose and be very clear about it. Name any third party or controllers you will rely on for that consent. For example, when I was using Urban Lab for finding something, certain dietitians, they started contacting me that, hey, what are you looking for? So they have to specify in their privacy that we have certain dietitians or doctors listed in our list, and your data will be shared with them. So these are the doctors which are listed. For example, one time I had some skin allergy and I needed to reach out to a doctor, a dermatologist, and I could easily find a nearby dermatologist and I could see the rating and everything. So when I logged into Urban Lab and when I was looking for a dermatologist, they said that my data would be shared with the doctor, and maybe after half an hour that doctor can ping me herself, and the doctor's data is also being shared with me because the doctor is using Urban Lab and their data is being shared with me. I can see what is the name, what is the address, what is their registration number, where are they located, and also reviews people have given to the doctor. So all that. So it should be notified to the doctor that anybody who uses Urban Lab to find dermatological services, your data will be shared with them. And as a individual, I should be notified in the privacy policy that your data will be shared to anybody who is practicing derma and is listed on Urban Lab. So it should be mentioned like that. Make it easy for people to withdraw consent. There should always be an unsubscribe part. Like you can go and you can unsubscribe from receiving mails or letting your data being processed. If you have accepted to receiving marketing mails so that you can know about the latest offer. For example, think about some hi-fi brand and you want to know when it is on sale, because some brands are rarely on sale and I would not like to miss that opportunity. And I've subscribed to their marketing data that they can send me mails when they have offers. But now I am to a different city and or maybe I don't like that brand anymore. Maybe I found I have developed a different taste, or now I think that it's now become very mature and I've decided that clothes is not something I would like to spend my money on, and I do not. So that is the moment I can easily, wherever I have received the marketing mail, in the end, it's generally written that please click unsubscribe to stop receiving the mail. You go to the bottom of the mail, you click unsubscribe, and then a new dialog box opens. There, sometimes they ask you, why do you want to unsubscribe? And 5-6 reasons are listed. It's not compulsory to tick something, But yeah, the company is collecting more data from you, that why suddenly this has become. So you don't want them to process your data, but they leave it only at the cost of getting some more data from you. So you understand that. So it's all about
squeezing every last bit.
Yes, data is the new oil. So just get it. Like they have and they give you a dialog box where you have to say not interested anymore, or moving to a new city, or things like that, and only then they let you unsubscribe. So that happens. So unsubscribing should be easy. Keep evidence of the consent. So that is what documenting. What is evidence? When you have everything documented, that is your evidence. That who, when, how, and what you told people. That's what we discussed. That when you're working into privacy, you're basically working into compliance. So you're ensuring privacy compliance, which is a non-financial compliance, which is a risk compliance. You're complying with risk. So when you are working in compliance, you need to have data of everything that has been talked about. It all should be documented to safeguard you from anything that happens in the future. For example, if something happens and you're the privacy specialist who was facilitating everything, and you've been very casual, not keeping anything people said you believed, and you went on very carelessly with it. Tomorrow, if anything happens, they'll all put the blame on you. You lose your job, you go to the jail. So when you're working in compliance, obviously there are other things in the picture. This is just to give you an example. It's not constant. There are variables when this happens. But here, when you're working into compliance, when you're working into risk compliance, ensure that everything is documented. That is for your own safety and the organization's safety. That tomorrow a customer doesn't come and say that I did not consent to this. Why are you doing this? You're processing my data illegally, unlawfully. And you can say that no, ma'am or sir, this is what you've signed and everything is written here. Here are the documents. Or if a compliance work happens, right? If the European agency sends somebody for a compliance check of your organization. So you have that. Keep the consent under review and refresh it if anything changes. So if the purpose changes, or if you have added a new sub-processor or a processor or a joint controller, in all that case, keep the person informed whose data you're processing, and then update the consent form with all the changes in it. Avoid making consent to processing a precondition of a service. You cannot say that provide your consent and only then I will give you the service. You cannot order food from my app unless you say yes to give consent to marketing email. That cannot happen. Consent has to be free. It's always consent. If it is consent, it is free. If it is not free, then it is not consent. Then it is forced. Public authorities and employers will need to take extra care to show that consent is freely given and should avoid over-reliance on consent. See, I am working with an organization and the organization has collected a lot of my personal data. Today I was filling a PPT where I had to write at least 10 lines about my personal life and then a couple of things about my professional life. But when I'm giving details about my personal life, it is a lot of personal data, right? And the employees make me do that. I will do that because I don't want to lose my job, right? And if the employee is asking for anything, when you're getting a job, and especially when you're new, they're like, kidney banglo, I'll give that if you give me the job and if it's a well-paying job. It's something like that. You just say yes to everything that they're saying. You don't negotiate. It's only when you're higher in your job and you're very confident, then you get the power of negotiation. The power of negotiation doesn't come really when you've started a job. Or, for example, you get a vice president position at a top-notch MNC, and they're also sending you outside for a couple of months, a couple of weeks, every few months. Whatever they ask, you're going to say yes to it because that offer is too lucrative. And then the employer has to be careful that because the employer holds a position over you, not, I wouldn't say an unjust position, but they have some kind of power towards framing your consent. It is really not free consent because it's your job and that's why you're giving the consent. When my first job happened, I did not care what they were paying. I did not. I was re-establishing my career in Finland and whatever came my way, I accepted it. After I accepted it, I realized that the salary was too less given my credentials. But today I'm in a position to negotiate because I have that confidence. But when you're getting a job, or even tomorrow if I get a very different position, and maybe I'll be too scared and I'll be like, no, it's time for me to get this promotion and let me just say yes to whatever they say. And sometimes what people do is that your HR will put in 3 months of notice period before. That's very unstable. But since you want that job, you just go and say yes. And that is not free consent. You're really cribbing about it to everybody. The 3 months, it's too much and this is too much. But then why did you give that consent? Because you wanted that job and you understand that it's not free consent. If it is not free, it's not consent. As an employer, you should always avoid having an over-reliance on consent. In certain cases, it's okay, but not always. You should not do that.